The year is 1974. The Indians and Rangers have been going at it, and it's exactly what it sounds like. This is 10-cent beer night, back when men were men and gas was leaded. The story we're about to tell needs a bit of context. Less than a week prior to the night in question, the Indians met the Texas Rangers at the Rangers Arlington Stadium. The game was tense and ultimately led to a bench-clearing brawl for normal baseball reasons. Hard slides, throwing at batters, yada yada. For whatever reason, things got a bit ugly and a lot of pitches were thrown at batters' heads, which led to a proper 1970s brawl erupting with actual punches thrown and landed. Not one of the modern pushes at most affairs. After the brawl was broken up, as Indians players and coaches were returning to the dugout, they were struck by food and beer hurled by Rangers fans. Catcher Dave Duncan had to be restrained from going into the stands to fight with fans. The game was not suspended or forfeited. No players from either team were ejected, and the Rangers won 3-0. After the game, a Cleveland reporter asked Rangers manager Billy Martin, "Are you going to take your armor to Cleveland?" To which Martin replied, "Nah, they won't have enough fans there to worry about." Even though the 1974 Indians were actually an improvement to their 69-73 predecessors, they were a pretty miserable squad. Either way, that constant losing streak meant for tons of empty seats at the lakefront ballpark. As a result, the team's front office was looking for any way it could to boost attendance. So, in their hope to pack the stadium, the powers that be came up with a truly genius idea. Allow me to introduce you to a four-word phrase Cleveland Indians fans likely shudder at: 10-cent beer night. The club intended to offer as much 8-ounce Stroh's beer as fans could drink, and for only 10 cents a pop. Yes, 10 cents each, equivalent to 52 cents in 2020. A substantial discount on the regular price of 65 cents, equivalent to $3.41 in 2020. For a mere handful of dimes, fans could wreck their livers and soak in some mediocre baseball. Little did anyone realize just how rowdy a bunch of young, alcohol-starved baseball fans could get. What was even more genius, there was a limit of 6 beers per purchase, but no limit, none whatsoever, on the number of purchases made throughout the game. Selling alcohol in stadiums was a touchy subject a couple of years ago. Some felt allowing alcohol sales in college football stadiums full of drunken, stumbling students was a horrible idea. Some argued fans should be able to buy a cold beer and enjoy a game just like the rest of professional sports fans. We can all agree that Miller Lite giving away 100,000 beers in honor of the USA women's national team kicking butt, or Bud Light unlocking free beer refrigerators when the Cleveland Browns finally won a game in 2018 were awesome, hilarious marketing strategies. But what happens when another Cleveland sports team essentially gives away beer and doesn't limit how many one can buy at a Major League Baseball game? Well, we're about to find out. The Indians had previously held such promotions without incident, beginning with Nickel Beer Day in 1971. The Rangers themselves had actually done a 10-cent beer night in Texas recently, and it went just fine. So while yeah, it was still probably ill-advised, it's not like it was unprecedented. There was at least some reason to believe it would work. The events of the team's last meeting from the prior week surprisingly left some Indians fans harboring a grudge against the Rangers. During the week leading up to the infamous game, the pressure was further enhanced by some edgy comments. Sports radio talk show host Pete Franklin stoked Clevelanders' frustration and set up the June 4th game as a grudge match. Indians radio announcer Joe Tate also fueled the fans' animosity towards the Rangers. And to top it all off, the Plain Dealer printed a cartoon the day of the game showing Chief Wahoo holding a pair of boxing gloves with the caption, "Be ready for anything." Of course, the bad blood continued into that June 4th night game inside Ohio's Cleveland Municipal Stadium. Let me set the scene here. It was the night of June 4th, and it was time for a matchup. The 10-cent beer night promotion drew 25,134 fans to Cleveland Stadium, double what the tribe expected. In light of that, a lot of fans made their way up to Municipal Stadium packing both attitudes and firecrackers. along with various other things they probably intended to throw on the field anyway. While that attendance might seem light by today's standards, it was a big deal for that team at the time. ESPN noted Cleveland Municipal Stadium had a monstrous capacity of 74,000 when it opened in 1931, which easily made it the largest stadium in America at the time. Yet, the average Tuesday night game in Cleveland in 1974 would attract only 12 to 13,000 fans, tops. As such, the ballpark staff was probably not prepared to deal with that many people getting out of hand. So why not add copious, better yet, unlimited amounts of alcohol to the mix? And thus began the 9-inning chug fest. An estimated 60,000 cold ones were served up. One fan in attendance, longtime NBC newscaster Tim Russert, told Meet the Press in 2008 he walked into the Cleveland Stadium with $2. You do the math, Russert said. What made matters worse was that the Indians were clearly understaffed for the event. At one point, agitated and impatient fans waiting for more beer began filling their cups and containers straight from the beer trucks themselves. For real, talk about excellent logistics. What could possibly go wrong? The lead-up to a complete and utter disaster was progressing nicely, just as the game was. The Rangers quickly took a 5-1 lead. Meanwhile, the intoxicated crowd continuously misbehaved. The second inning, a woman ran onto the Indians' on-deck circle and flashed her chest. She then unsuccessfully tried kissing crew chief umpire Nestor Chilak. Fourth inning, a naked man streaked onto the field and slid into second base as Rangers player Tom Grieve rounded the base following his second home run of the game. Also, Martin came out to argue a call that ruled the Indians' Leron Lee safe at third base. Fans pelted the manager with beer cups and he blew kisses at them in response. Fifth inning, a father and son hopped the outfield fans and mooned fans in the bleachers. As the beer continued to flow, so did the flung hot dogs, cups, spit, and even an empty bottle of wine at the direction of Rangers All-Star first baseman Mark Hargrove, who ironically managed the Indians to World Series appearances in 1995 and 1997. Still others threw lit firecrackers into the Rangers bullpen, to which Nilak only evacuated both bullpens and told pitchers to warm up on the field's mound. The ugliness of the game took a turn for the worse when Leron Lee of Cleveland hit a line drive that hit Rangers pitcher Ferguson Jenkins in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground. Fans in the upper deck of Municipal Stadium chanted, "Hit him again! Hit him again! Harder! Harder!" thus severely heightened the crowd's rowdiness. 9 innings in, and north of 7,200,000 ounces of beer later, the real fun was just beginning. Firecrackers, streakers, and marijuana further enlivened the event. Most sober fans had already departed early, leaving an increasingly drunk and unruly crowd behind. The continued degradation of the game culminated in a riot in the 9th inning, including a mass pitch invasion. The scene devolved into a fan versus player battle, as players were forced to use bats to protect themselves while retreating off the field. The rioters stepped up their game with steel folding chairs. Nice. And Cleveland relief pitcher Tom Hilgendorf was hit in the head by one of them. Hargrove, after subduing one rioter in a fistfight, had to fight another one on his way back to the Texas dugout. At this point, the list of objects grew substantially to include rocks, bottles, batteries from radios, hot dogs, popcorn containers, tennis and golf balls, folding chairs, and of course, everyone's favorite, beer. When a brief lull occurred, Martin and Aspromonte led the players through a tunnel and off the field. Fans then took over completely, ripping up grass, stealing bases, and the whole 9 yards. Umpire crew chief Chilak, realizing that order would not be restored in a timely fashion, forfeited the game to Texas. He too was a victim of the rioters, as one struck and cut his head with a part of a stadium seat and his hand was cut by a thrown rock. He later called the fans uncontrollable beasts and stated that he'd never seen anything like what had happened except in a zoo. Yikes. The Cleveland police eventually showed up to clear the field, like 5 hours later. Somehow, only 9 people were arrested. Only 9. Very cool. Later, in the clubhouse, Martin told a reporter that was the closest you're ever going to be to seeing someone get killed in this game of baseball. Lee MacPhail, MLB American League president at the time, said there was no question beer played a role in the riot. You think, dude? Despite the promotion resulting in complete catastrophe, the Indians held a second 10-cent beer night 1 month later. Seriously, come on, man. They drew 41,000 fans to the park for that one. But there was no riot, because unlike the case on June 4th, fans were limited to 2 10-cent beers, and the quadrupled staff and security kept a close watch on folks to make sure they didn't cheat. As far as crazy baseball promotions go, 10-cent beer night ranks right up there next to Disco Demolition Night, the Dodgers baseball giveaway night in 1995, or any of the extensive number of wacky minor league baseball promotions. For example, the Florida Fire Frogs gave away free beer until the opposing team scored in a 2018 game, which drew a large crowd and ran smoothly. Free or cheap beer will always draw crowds, but let's just hope teams learn their lesson from the Cleveland Indians' famous, or infamous at this point, 10-cent beer night. As a closing statement, I'd like to quote Joe Tate and Herb Score, who were the sportscasters for the game that night. They both noted security's ineptitude before Cleveland police came to the ballpark and restored order by using force, tear gas, and shutting off the lights. The security people here are just totally incapable of handling this crowd. They just, well, short of the National Guard, I'm not sure what would handle this crowd right now. It's unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Now back to you, Tom. So, if you were at a baseball game and they were serving 10-cent beers, how many beers would you drink? I know my answer, and it's not pretty.